Have you ever wondered why some real estate agents perform at ultra-high levels every single year? Welcome to the Unstoppable Agent Podcast with your host, Richard Fournier. Each week, we interview real estate agents from around the world who are constantly ranked in the top 1% of the real estate industry. My mission, share with you their best strategies so that you can create your own peak results as a real estate agent. It's time to become unstoppable.
Hello and welcome back to this episode of the Unstoppable Agent Podcast. I'm your host, Rich Fournier, and I'm very excited to be crossing the country of Canada into Victoria, British Columbia. I'm very honored to have a very high-producing agent, Patricia Kiteke from the Kiteke Team. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Hello. Hi, Rich. Thanks for having me. You nailed it. You nailed the name. So we're starting off on the right foot.
Right. You know, this is, it's always a challenge to make sure I say things correctly. And I speak so quickly sometimes I mispronounce. I actually was in remedial class to learn how to say my R's correctly as a child.
Wow. Okay.
So there's some insecurity things coming out. So listen, I'm so excited to have you here. Now, this podcast, of course, is genuinely focused on figuring out what creates an unstoppable agent in the marketplace today, someone who is performing at a very high level. Typically, we only interview the top 1% out of a brokerage. People are operating at a really high level. And you're currently with EXP, correct?
Yeah, that's right. EXP Realtor. Yeah.
Wonderful. And you're currently running a team of 15 agents.
Yes. Yeah. That's right. So total, and we've had a little bit of, attrition. We've had people come, we've had people go, and that's okay. That's actually, we don't necessarily want to be the right fit for everyone because we've got systems, processes, and commitment that's necessary. So even though, within our organization, we're striving to work with the agents to achieve their goals, we find that the agents that really want to, or that fit into the culture, are agents who are striving also for their own version of excellence as well. So
that's amazing. Yeah. Now, when I look out at the bio that was sent to me, and I was told to interview you because you have a crazy history of in your life, like where you've come from, what you've navigated just to get to Canada and do it. So would you mind sharing maybe 5 minutes, and I know I'm not doing it justice, but 5 minutes of the journey into Canada?
Yeah. It is crazy. Actually, like if I stop and think about it, I'm like, holy smokes, why am I even here right now? For sure. Because there's a lot of people that might not even be lucky enough to be here right now. So I feel very grateful every day. My mom and dad met in Moscow. My dad is from Uganda. He and my mom met in university. He was doing his PhD in Moscow. And then they got married, moved back to Uganda, and things were really politically, there's a lot of political turmoil and unrest in Uganda, and people were getting shipped out of the country, or there was like militia in the capital cities and, guerrilla warfare, that kind of thing. And my mom just had to find a way to get she and I out. Like she was totally not prepared to go from her life in Russia to that scenario. And things were going from bad to worse. And so my dad found a way to get her and I out of the country. And we actually lived in Italy for about a year in kind of like limbo and transition, and then came to Canada basically on refugee status. And luckily got out of there and got to a safe place here in Canada.
And how old were you when this happened?
So I was about 3 years old when all of this was happening. And then got to Canada somewhere around 3.5, 4 years old, somewhere in there.
Wow.
Yeah.
What in the formative part of your life, right?
It's crazy. Like sometimes I tell people, when I think back, like my mom and I lived in a church basement when we got here for a little while. Like that's how nothing we started from until we could get, some housing and stuff like that. So, yeah.
And this is why I want to talk to you today, because of this journey. And, so you go from, refugee status here in Canada. You go through life, you get to the point of making a decision, be in the real estate world now. Was it your primary decision, or for most of us, is your second or third choice?
Yeah, mine, and a lot of people, if you know me, know my story, was an accidental decision because I was still in university. So I was a university student in my third year, and I was like, I gotta just, get good grades. I need a job where I can like just do my homework and study. And so I thought I'll go work in one of those show homes. There's like never anybody in there. It's pretty quiet. I'll just go work there and I can get some studying done. And this was around 2005-ish. So just, one of the right in a boom time. And it was anything but quiet. So my boss was doing like, he was closing like 4 deals a day. Like it was insanity in there. At one point when we kind of sat down and calculated his average, he had done 365 deals that year, but just him and I. So it was like a deal a day on average. In a very busy climate, lots of construction. And so, yeah, I all of a sudden was like learning through a fire hose, the ins and outs of the industry as an assistant while I was going to school.
Wow.
So that's how I got started. Yeah, that's where it began.
And that's where it began. And so you had a crash course in new construction.
Yeah.
And so if you don't mind me asking, how were you around? And then, so 18, 19?
Oh, no. So that was around 22-ish.
Okay.
I had actually traveled for a long time around
Okay.
Asia and stuff before hitting that part. But yeah, so that was around 22-ish. Just wanting to wrap up school and then go into, figure out what my career was going to be. But then very quickly, after watching somebody do that amount of deals, I was like, this should be my career. So
Sure,
that's
absolutely
how it started. Yeah. Yeah.
So how do you transition from new construction to resale? If you don't mind me asking.
Yeah, well, and a lot of it had to do with, 2008 hit, and we hit that dip that a lot of us know very, very well. And the builders just started making cutbacks. They started slimming down. And then I kind of realized that, if I stay working for the builder, I'm kind of at the mercy, like now, and it was still truly a job, but I was kind of at the mercy of what decisions they were making for my career.
Right.
And at that point, I realized, no, I've got to take control of my career. And that's when I decided I'm going to get licensed. Actually, we moved out of our province, moved across to the West Coast, where we are now, got licensed and started rolling with it. Really got rolling in 2010 in Victoria now.
So that tells me that you didn't really know a lot of people when you started in a market. Is that fair to say?
Yes, we knew nobody. Like we didn't know anybody when we came out here and I started my career. Yeah.
So if you can maybe educate me around the psychology around that, because to get started in a market where I have intimate knowledge of that myself, so maybe you can explain the psychology around that, because that is almost a rational belief. No?
Yeah, totally. And yeah, people feeling like, maybe this person's doing well because they have the contacts, or that person's doing well because they have the marketing budget, and exactly, like dispelling all of those limiting beliefs and just really understanding that if you have 2 feet and a heartbeat, you can go out there and you can hustle up your business and you can create the career that you want to create. It is going to take a lot of hard work, but so breaking that down a little bit, one thing that I did have was the example of a high producer before. So I will take that, that piece of my past experience was something that I knew it was possible already when I came into my marketplace. And then what happened was I joined my previous brokerage, and I was looking around, and yeah, sure, there were some people doing, a good number of deals, but they didn't, there was nobody that was producing on the same level that I had seen before. So one thing that I did fairly early on, and it wasn't that early, I want to say it was about 5 years in. So I was kind of plotting away. I was doing, 15 deals 20 a year, 20 deals a year, just kind of getting
Right.
my feet warm. I was at every networking event. Like my husband says, he didn't see me for, years at a time, because it was like at every single networking event, talking to every person I could talk to. I joined boards. Like I was the board of director of like Ballet Victoria. I was the board of director of like a bunch of different boards. I volunteered at the art gallery. Like I was everywhere. I was absolutely everywhere. So networking was my first kind of thing that I did. The other thing that I did right away is, again, having the experience of a builder with show home experience. So I did open houses all the time. Like I was at 2 to 5 open houses a weekend.
So I'm not laughing at you. I'm like, mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know the drill, right?
So, all right. So, okay, I need to just pull back just a second here. So I love top producers' mindsets. It's amazing. Like you're saying, I was doing okay, 15, 20 deals. If I look at the industry, the statistics, you're already in the top 10% at that level.
So it could have been for what we're seeing.
Wow.
But again, and this is, I think, is like the biggest blessing in the world, was walking into that show home and getting that job, because I was doing nothing compared to my mentor, my first mentor in this business.
Right.
I was like, how do I get to his level? How do I go get to where he was at? And
So
so
inside your mind, if you don't mind me saying, sorry, I want to make sure
go ahead.
because I'm trying to paint a picture. So in your mind, massive, unreasonable success is normal.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's all I had known up until that point.
Right. That's all you saw. So
yeah.
Why wouldn't someone operate at that level? Just want to make sure our audience understands that psychology right there. Sorry to interrupt. You were on a roll, but it was really important that there was a belief system that was implanted into your brain that it was entirely possible and probable.
Totally. And so that was the thing, is I was frustrated. I'm like, how do I break this ceiling of like, year over year, 15 deals, maybe 20 as a high? Like, to me, I was like, how do I get through this? And so even though I had sort of seen some of the successes with my mentor, it was a slightly different model because of the way things were operating with the builder and in a different province. So there's still a lot of gaps in my understanding of like, how do I break past this? And so at that point, I was kind of mentioning, my husband was like, what if I quit my job and like we go full force on this? And that's what we decided to do. We were like, yes, let's do this like as much as we possibly can. Like, that was really what ended up happening. And so we hired our first business coach. So our first business coach was this amazing guy out of Texas. He was fantastic. And he really worked with us every week systematically to help us build and grow. And every week add a new pillar, add new metrics, track and measure new things. Tracking and measuring, also just a huge thing to kind of wrap your head around and know, like, what results do you have? What do you need to measure to get the results that you want, right? And so doing that with a coach, it just changed the game for us. It was a totally eye-opening experience of like, here's what you guys are doing, and some of this stuff is working, but now let's add on other pieces and other pillars to scale what you're doing right now.
Perfect. And so he came on, your husband came on. Now, husband and wife teams, right? Like it can't, like, my wife and I were together when we, for a long time in the real estate game, and it can be challenging. You got kids in there, you're living a very hectic, stressful life in the game of real estate. And come home, you bring it home, and you're both relying on a commissioned income now. And how do you navigate? That's a navigating minefield.
Totally. And I think it can be, for sure. Like, the key thing that Greg and I did was we were like, the coach's word is law. Like, whatever he says is the tiebreaker for anything we're talking about in the background. Because you have different ideas. And I'm just going to backtrack and say this. Greg and I were always going in the same direction. Like, we're on the same team. And that was very important. Like, we do have that dynamic and that relationship. And we also have very different personalities. So we have different strengths and weaknesses. And so that also was very complementary in terms, like, we weren't both good at the same things. Luckily, he's not like me. Let's just put it that way. I don't know if I could be married to me, but luckily we had that complementary relationship. And also, when there were moments of having different approaches or thinking things would work better in a different way, we just asked the coach, and what he said always was the final say.
Makes a lot of sense. You need someone to be able to see the blind spot.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally. Yeah.
We all
And it
have,
doesn't matter who the idea is coming from. It's like, does this make sense or doesn't it? If not, let's move on.
right. Is it going to serve us towards our final destination? Period.
Yeah. Yeah.
When we look at the industry itself today, I'll just because I know the numbers, the Toronto Real Estate Board, we get 65 to 70,000 agents on the board today. Over 25% are doing less than zero. They're doing zero deals a year.
Right.
Right. So, we can translate that probably out to every single board.
Yeah.
And then, the next 25% is maybe doing 2 or 3. And then,
Yeah.
So, and I want to ask you this question, like, why you? Like, where did the fire come from? Like what was that hunger to operate in a commission-based business where you live and die by the results that you create on a daily basis?
Yeah.
Where'd it come from?
Yeah. I think it came from a couple of places because we were hungry, right? Like we moved provinces. We just started from scratch. So already there was like just a sheer need, not only just like, I want to be good at this. It was like, we have to do this. This is important to start our lives in this new place. So I feel like our backs were up against the wall. And that's probably why even just getting to 15 or 20 deals as quickly as we did, it was just out of sheer necessity, right? Or as quickly as I did. So there was that real need right at the beginning of it. But then again, I'm going to kind of harp back to my previous experience. But once we were like kind of baseline surviving and like, okay, yeah, there's paychecks coming in or whatever. It was like, well, I don't want to just be here. Like, I don't want to just do okay for forever. And I had seen the examples of like, there's people really blowing up and really doing this at a high level. And that excited me. Like, I'm excited by that. Like, being comfortable is boring to me. I'm going to just say that.
Right.
If I'm not waking up and challenging myself in some way every day, then I'm bored. And so I think there is this element of like, life should be exciting. Life should be, I want to grow. I want to continue to do things that I haven't done yet. And so that's what gets me out of bed in the morning. It's not there are day-to-day things. There is a bit, I don't know if drudgery is the right word, but there's the day-to-day stuff you just got to handle to get to the next level. But to me, the feeling of looking back 90 days later and going, I hit that goal that we set out to hit is important.
I feel like I'm beating a dead horse a little bit, but I do want to talk about this. Like, so you have an individual who, their back's against the wall, right?
Yeah.
Currently could be happening in someone's life today in the market.
Totally.
And, your back's against the wall, like somebody can just cave and run away. And then I'm in zero judgment around that. And
Sure.
You have another person that says, no, like, no, I will create it in spite of what I see in front of me. Mm-hmm. Where does that come from for you? Like, where did that belief, like, no, I can create something from nothing, where did that come from?
Okay. So this came from like my upbringing. This came from, and I'm not trying to like, say that I don't want to get overly spiritual about this or anything like that. But when I was in my first year of university, my mom handed me a copy of The Greatest Salesman in the World. And she was like, all right.
Mandino?
Mandino, right?
Right there. It's right
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
And I'm laughing because I know the team's going to be laughing because I don't think I have a conversation without mentioning something that involves Mandino, right? But she kind of said to me, like, you're going out into the world and you can do whatever. Like she right away, she was like, if you're having hardships, if you need anything, go back to this, go to the principles in this. And one thing that my mom taught me from a very, very young age, she used to always say to me, Patricia, you're never going to get what you deserve, but you'll always get what you can negotiate. And then she gave me that and she was like, go into the world and negotiate the life that you want. And that's kind of, that was sort of part of, core values in my household that I had grown up with. So that was, I think, where the belief that I can do anything and I can create something from anything. I mean, I'm not even supposed to be in this country and living and thriving right now. So like baseline from there. And I've also watched my mom pull us out of a church basement and then build a wonderful life for us. Right. So that like the idea that I couldn't do something isn't necessarily it's not something that I'm held back by. The question is, what do I want to do, or how much do I want to put into building any certain thing, right? And that, so then it starts becoming about choices, and where do I want to put my energy, and what do I think is worth it to pull out of myself, I guess.
So I had a broker say to me once, Rich, it's either you have it or you don't. And I mean, I'd love to get your perspective on that. Can that fire be taught or given to someone?
I mean, I think it was given to me. I think it was just given to me at a young age. And yeah, I mean, maybe you haven't gone through that thing yet that's sparking you, or maybe you haven't found that thing yet. I think if you sit in it, I think no matter who you are, if you actually sit with yourself and you get real with yourself, and you know, if you're in real estate and it's not happening in real estate, maybe you need to ask yourself, is it even real estate that's going to bring it forth? But if you are here, and to me, real estate is a vehicle as well, right? Like it's a vehicle to being the person I want to be in my community. It's a vehicle to knowing that I can generate, you know, wealth, and I can generate abundance, and then I can pay that forward to other people. So, you know, it's not just about, hey, I want to do X amount of deals and, you know, do this in GCI. Those are interesting goals, and they're like the math of what I want to be in this world. So they're important and they're good measuring sticks. But for me, real estate just, you know, I saw very early on in life that it was a vehicle to get to anywhere I wanted to go. If I took it seriously, and if I treated it the way that top producers treat it, and the people that were doing it in front of me. So yeah, find something you love about this world, and then decide if real estate's that vehicle that's going to get you there.
It's amazing. That's amazing. I got goosebumps listening to that. You know, when you looked at the granular part of real estate, like when you break it down to daily activity, is, you know, like and people want to hear this, by the way, they want to know some of this stuff. You already gave the answer to performance. It's a choice. You don't count the cost anymore, right? The cost has already been counted.
Yeah.
Decisions made.
Yeah.
I'm taking the island, one way or the other. And I think this is the answer, but unfortunately we got to go into the strategies that everyone thinks is the business, and is part of the business.
Right.
But
yeah.
So, you know, when you look at your day-to-day and the activities that you did, let me guess, when you made the decision, there was a miraculous Rolodex that showed up and said, here are 300 people that are going to buy and sell $1 million property in the next 5 years. Just call.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that didn't happen for you. How did you grow it?
Yeah, I mean, in the beginning, it started with networking.
Okay.
And then, like I said, it started with open housing, being out there. So those were kind of the free things that I could do, or the things that, like, yeah, if you don't have any money, you don't have a budget, you're just going to walk outside of your front door and try to go hustle up a real estate deal today. That, you know, that was how I did it. And I wasn't even doing my own open houses. And I think this is worth mentioning to agents who are starting out. I do say this to agents that are starting out. I was calling up other busier agents, and I was strategically looking for open houses on busy roads with you know, factors like, you know, schools in front of them or whatever. So open houses that I knew that if I put enough signage out in front of them, and because I couldn't even advertise these, they weren't my listings.
Right.
So I had to attract, you know what I mean? Right. So it was like, okay, I'm not going to sit here for 2 hours, 3 hours and have nobody come in either. How am I going to get people through the front door? So the open houses were strategically selected. And even sometimes if I had a listing, but it wasn't in a prime location to get good traffic, I would go do someone else's open house instead of my own.
Very intentional, right? So very intentional. It wasn't, I'm going to sit at the open house, pretend that I'm busy. Intentionally focus on producing an outcome at the open house.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So if my goal is to talk to 25 people today, how am I going to do that? So also, now we're going to kind of bring in some of the math, but how many people do you need to talk to every single day in order to do, however many deals you're going to do? So, we kind of use the 2 deals a month as a nice, benchmark. If you're doing 2 deals a month, you're steady in real estate, right? You know where your paychecks are coming from. You're not sweating it out at the end of every month. So then you need to work backwards from there. What's your conversion ratio? If you talk to 25 people, do you get 1 appointment? Or do you need to talk to 50 people to get 1 appointment?
Yeah.
Do you need to understand that? Or are you the type of person that you can talk to 6 and get 1 appointment, right? So over time, understanding that, but in the beginning, you can just set an easy benchmark of like, look, talk to 10 to 25 people a day and something will shake out of that, right?
Right.
You can fine tune your metrics later. So that's how I would kind of do it. Yeah.
Did you ask for their, like when you, in the middle of it, this is calling for emotional intelligence, right? How to communicate to someone. That's a given. If we can't do that, then we got to figure that out first. But I'm assuming that someone knows how to communicate, right? Are you asking for their email? Like, are you doing follow-up, or like, is this part of the CRM system to create digital relationships with someone?
Yeah, 100%. So yes, you want to leave that interaction with a way to contact people next. And there's a lot of ways that you can do that. You can have contests. You can just flat out ask them, what's the best number to reach you at? That's my preference, but I know sometimes people get uncomfortable with being direct. I don't think you have to feel like you're being rude when you're being direct, but I was there to work and I was there to do a purpose. And so, I wanted to get as many contacts as I could. So that's why I was there. So I would be direct, can I offer you some information, come from a position of being of service, give people, especially when you're in an open house. To me, open houses were so good because at least the person's putting their hand up and saying, I'm thinking about doing something.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm ready, maybe I'm not, but I'm looking at a house on some level. Like, so to me, that's the kind of like the physical, world of like, being able to go in and do a Google search, right? Like, this person's putting their hand up and saying, I'm thinking about something.
100%.
So, right? Yeah.
Like so again, the faith to go out there and put signs and have faith that, people are going to come in, I'm going to talk to them. There's a tremendous amount of faith in our business to be a producer. Like I don't see a way around faith.
No.
Right. Yeah.
No.
I know people think it's all spirit, esoteric stuff that I talk about, but it's faith, man. Like, seriously.
Well, and it makes me laugh because I just have images of like, and I just remember being in like high heels, putting like nailing signs. I used to have like a 5-pound sledge and I was like nailing signs into the ground at major intersections. And like, just thinking like, yeah, I better get at least 10 people through today because, I need that.
When you look at, like, if I moved to your neck of the woods today, right? And I said, Patricia, what do I got to do today? What would you tell me to do right now? Zero business. Who do I got to be? And what do I got to do today to create business?
Yeah. So
in this environment,
sorry,
my fault. But in this environment today.
Yeah.
Right.
In this environment today. And when I started, the environment was very much the same. Like right now in my current market, we have about 2,100 homes on the MLS. Yeah. When I started, we had 3,500 about there on the MLS.
Okay, interesting.
So, right, like we were very firmly into buyer market territory when I started. And so what I would say is this: at least every single day, make 5 contacts. And I want to be very clear that a contact is not hanging out at the dog park, just like liking other dog owners or like, just being friendly to people in the bank lineup. A contact is asking somebody, are you thinking of buying or selling in the near future? Okay. That's what qualifies as contact. You have to know and be able to identify and be speaking to decision makers about whether or not they're going to do something. And you can do that in free ways, open housing, even whether you have any listings or not, attending networking events, pulling up your phone. And, we all kind of forget that we all probably have at least 300 people in our phones that we can have a conversation with.
Right.
Right. So that's just number one, day one, free. Obviously, as you start to build and as you start to sell real estate, then you're going to start to have a marketing budget. You're going to start to have some money in the bank, and then you can start to go to, higher level strategies and strategies that leverage you more so that you can do more deals and scale and level up. But in the beginning, if you have no money and you just need to go out there and start selling real estate, I also did door knocking. So, we're kind of belaboring the open houses and things like that, but I did door knock a couple times a week for, a prescribed period of time. My first listing ever in the city that I live in came from door knocking.
Wow.
So it's not for everybody, but it is a strategy that's out there. And again, in the beginning, you're doing things that are more labor intensive. When you've got when you start making a bit of money and you've got a bit of money in the bank, then you can start letting your money create some leverage for you and start generating leads for you later on.
And even if you have the money, the leverage has to be, in my opinion, and tell me if I'm wrong about this, but the money has to be spent in a way that generates not only a brand, and I'm not like brand is brand, and I think that takes a lot of money to create a brand. But I believe that if I don't get a phone number, email, name, somehow, some way, I don't have a contact.
Totally.
That's just my belief.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
Out of sight, out of mind. Listen, every minute of our conversation, someone's listening to this, they have been distracted 7 to 10 times. They have lost attention 7 to 10 times.
Right.
Scientifically speaking.
Right.
And so if I'm not communicating to someone somehow, some way over time consistently around, I'm done. It's over.
Totally.
Okay.
Totally. Yeah. Right. And I mean, we've got a pretty large database now, but I laugh when I hear certain things like, the leads are bad. These are bad leads, or they're dead. They're never going to do anything. And, the amount of times now after, working the same database for so long that we've had somebody who has refused to give us a phone number, doesn't want to talk to us, never wants to hear from us, but you've got that email. And then for some reason, the right property goes out in email at the right time when they're at the right stage of their sales cycle, and all of a sudden they're calling you back up, right? Or you film a video about what to do when interest rates are going up, if it's timely or whatever. There's all kinds of bits of information, and that person gets that from you at the exact moment that they needed to hear it because there's something happening or changing for them in their lives. And there's so many reasons that can happen. There's estate sales, there's people separating, there's people getting together, there's new kids coming into the family. There's so many things that can be happening for someone that makes them all of a sudden think, hey, I need to speak to this person. And now I'm engaged again.
Right. And in the meantime, you have created a relationship. They know your name. They watch you. Maybe you've done a video and they're laying in bed on that phone, not paying attention to their spouse, watching you.
Yeah. Yes.
I can tell you thousands of examples I hear weekly around this conversation.
Totally.
And for our audience, someone comes to Canada, zero circle of influence, zero networking, zero network, and is in the top 1% in her business, in a very competitive cutthroat business, right? Yeah. My goodness, I could talk to you for weeks and weeks and weeks. If you were to give
feelings mutual, totally. I'm getting some great ideas here.
So when we look out at the rest of the year, and so just for a timestamp because this is a global audience, right? Mm-hmm. So, but the timestamp is we're mid-September 2022.
Yeah,
interest rates are on the rise, volumes are down. We look out 12 months. Are you doubling, tripling, how are you operating today going forward in your business?
Totally. I think that's a great question, and it's definitely what is on top of everybody's mind. So yes, doubling is always the goal, regardless of the market. Doubling should always be the goal, but it is 100% for us as a team goal, as well as just on an individual level as well. But so I think the reality is going back to basics. So for me, even though I had started my career in a boom and watched some really tremendous results, I went out on my own in the middle of, or at the beginning of a recession, and changed and moved provinces in the middle of that recession and had to build throughout that recession. So one thing that is different from my business than everybody that you ever speak to, and I'm not sure why or how it worked out this way for me, but I was always buyer heavy because they were the quickest path to a paycheck, right? So for me, I just knew how to talk to people and shorten the sales cycles and just really get people to a point where they understood what they were trying to accomplish and how I could help them do that as quickly as possible. So that was a skill that I developed also out of necessity, because like you say, sales are down and inventory is rising. So that was one thing that, so don't discard, like, yes, your listing business is great, but it's also going to be a source of drain on your finances and your resources. So watch that, keep an eye out on that. And then the other thing is really going back to core activities. So again, how many conversations are you having right now? If you needed to have 8 last year to get a deal, and you might need to have 18 or 25 this year to get that same deal. And if you still want 4, or if you want to go from 2 to 4, that means you're going to have to increase the conversations that you have.
So in that moment, when I said to some of our clients, said you can't operate the way you were operating last year or the year before, right? The environment, the ecosystem is not conducive to the same person. Like you cannot be the same person in this ecosystem that you were last year. And that's hard for a lot of people. They think it should get easier as time goes on. No, there is no guarantee that life will be easier. And in this ecosystem, it's actually become more challenging. You got to be stronger, smarter, emotionally more stable than you've ever had to be. Right?
Yeah. And I mean, I'll honestly say this too, because I find it interesting because, last year we listened to agents struggle with closing their buyers, right? So of course, last year, sellers were gold, but we still heard the stories of like the struggling agents who had written 10 offers with one client, and those buyers that weren't closing and they were losing out. So you needed different strategies in that market. And now, to me, I honestly think the strategies are easier if you're implementing them properly, right? It's just a matter of scaling the amount of people that you talk to, what you talk to them about, how you talk to them. How much do you know about creative financing options? How much do you know about the dynamic and how to quantify, well, what does this house look like in this current interest rate environment? Because here's the best part of that. Even though interest rates have gone up, house prices have come down. So where's the math on that? Is it still affordable or isn't it? Are you the expert advisor that's guiding your clients through this so that they can be the ones that are taking advantage of the opportunity? Because we know there's opportunity in this market as well.
100%. We're seeing it here. I see clients I've never spoken to, right? I just think everyone's a client in my mind. Yes. They reach out and say, what is this the time? I'm like, it's getting interesting, right?
Yeah.
It's interesting. That 1.7 million properties now 1.1 million. I don't know. Think about
how what interest rate differential does it actually take to make up that difference, right? So having those conversations.
Right. Is there something that you do every day that keeps you in I don't like saying positive mindset. I like to think, strong emotionally. What do you do for yourself to keep yourself in that space? Because you're leading a team, you got to be a foundation for other people. What do you do?
Yeah. Well, and in speaking about the team, I also feel like they inspire me. So I love the people that I'm surrounded by. And so as much as I want to show up for myself, I want to show up for them too. So I think having the right people around you is key. It's like, no matter how strong you think you are mentally, we're all going to have bad days. We're all going to have a bad week. And when you've got people that you can come back to the table with too, and shake it off, and then kind of re-up your focus and your commitment to each other, I think that's important. So whether you just have like a partner or a buddy in the industry, like, you don't want to be doing this alone. I think it's the hardest thing to do when you're doing this alone, and it gets very, very lonely. So have the right people around you that give you good energy. Also, if you've got a team of people around you that you feel are sapping your energy, reevaluate that, find the right crew. So that's number one. And then I listen to stuff like your podcast. I seek out sources. Like, if I'm having a day where I'm like, things just aren't clicking, or whatever, my mindset is like, if I'm not getting the result I want, it's because I haven't learned something that I need to learn yet. So where do I need to go? Who do I need to talk to? What do I need to listen to learn the thing that's going to remove this roadblock so that I can move forward and implement quickly, right? So that's another thing, just getting the right inputs and the right sources of information. A coach can be great for that. And then I do treat myself, like, so mini wins are really fun. I mean, we've got big audacious goals to be sure, but sometimes it's just having a win for the day or a win for the week that keeps you going too.
This is gold. Like, if our audience can just stop for a second at the end of this podcast and hit rewind and go back and listen to it again and again and again. The secrets to performance are really present right here and right now. So I can't tell you how much I appreciate your time. I know my audience appreciates you and appreciates what you've put into this conversation. I'm sure they can reach out to you if they have any questions.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Brilliant. And thank you for giving of yourself today. I wish you nothing but the best for the rest of the year. And I'm going to extend this invite to you. Why don't we schedule another time? I think there's so much more to dive into success and performance-based mindset with you. And I look forward to hopefully welcoming you back. And if you say yes right now, because I'm putting you
totally.
Okay, awesome. There we go.
I would be more than happy to. I'd be more than happy to. Anytime, Reg. Yeah.
So now you have to. So
yeah, done.
I appreciate you. If anyone is looking to refer their clients to BC, I'm sure Patricia will be glad to take care of them in a professional way. So thank you very much for being here, and we look forward to talking with you soon.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to today's show. If you like what you've heard and you're interested in creating a quantum leap in your real estate business, here's what I want you to do next. Head over to www.theunstoppableagentprogram.com and book an appointment to speak with our team. We'll get on a Zoom call with you for about 30 minutes and get you crystal clear on 3 things. Number 1, what do you really want out of your life and your business? Number 2, what is not working for you today? And number 3, the exact mindset strategy you should be using to create massive change in these areas. Remember, creating massive, consistent results in your real estate business does not happen by itself. You need expert guidance to make it happen. We're helping clients all over the world create peak results in their real estate business. To see if we can help you do the same, head over to www.theunstoppableagentprogram.com. We'll chat soon.